أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. In the name of Allah, the cherisher and the sustainer of the universe, peace and blessings of Allah be upon our noble prophet and messenger Muhammad, his household and followers, and all those who follow the path of Allah to the day of Qiyam. Viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to your Friday's favorite program on Metro TV, the Islamic Hour on Islamic Belt. Today I have a very, very important guest in the studio, and we are also discussing a very, very important topic, Islamic law and human rights principle. Basically, we're going to look at how to promote community well-being by aligning principles of human rights with religious texts, in this context with Sharia. Now, to put our discussion in context, I will say that Sharia, both Sharia and then Sharia means Islamic law. I have a scholar here, he would explain everything. Both Islamic law and then principles of human rights form essential segment of regulating human behavior. The role of Sharia and the role of principles of human rights remain very substantial, and then it is uncontested. But there are considerable debates around the incompatibility of Sharia or otherwise with human rights principle. A whole lot of issues. So in the studio to help me digest the issue and then bring all of us to, one page is minister. This is not a political minister, it's a minister of religion. Those of you who are familiar with Louis Farrakhan and his group, they use it. So his minister or Imam, he doesn't want sheikh, I know. Mohammed Husseini Bagnya. That's right. He's very familiar with this terrain because, you know, he's been on TV and radio for some time, but he's out for some time doing his own thing. Right. Imam, Assalamu alaikum. It's nice to see you back to the studio.
Nice to be in the studio with you, brother.
Good. How do you feel we bringing you back to face the cameras today?
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I feel so good. You know, I almost said I wasn't coming, but I can't say no to
MashaAllah.
you. So, but I feel so glad, you know, to be here and to discuss a very important subject. The attempt at aligning the principles of human rights against the principles of Islamic law, and whether they fit comfortably into each other or they argue. In other words, they do not fit comfortably with each other. This debate has been going on for a very long time.
Yes.
Happily, I was with you in Senegal.
Yes, I was going to say that, in fact, we have to show appreciation and gratitude to the Qatar Center.
That's right.
They sponsored us to a UN accredited training center, human rights training center in Senegal.
That's right.
In 2015,
That's right.
we did the foundation, and last year, just this December, we did the advanced course. And it is a vow we took that when we come back to our country, the knowledge that we have acquired, we will share, and then the experience with that. So before we even start looking at our topic for today, Tostan Training 2015 and Tostan Training 2019, how have you benefited And what have you been doing with the knowledge you acquired?
Immensely. The benefit is very huge and very immense. 2015, we were introduced to the proper understanding of what human rights are and whether we can pick them from the Quran and try to, as it were, use them, live them, and also teach these things to our followers, our listeners, and our viewers too as well. This year in December, when we went back, we were introduced to a higher training course meant for religious leaders and of course social and also other traditional leaders too as well. Now here's the difference. The difference is that this time we are armed, we are equipped to equip some other person.
Okay.
We are trained and enabled for us to train some other people. The first training wasn't, you know, in that nature. So this time we've learned a whole lot that, if, like you know, we can't exhaust one topic on one TV program. We just have to try and do our best. And thanks a lot to the Carter Center people, former President Carter himself, and what's the name of that lady?
Molly
Melchin of Tostan Center in Senegal.
Laura,
of course,
and
then Karen. We thank them so greatly from the core of our hearts. Yes.
So Imam, let's go into our topic because we don't have much time. What is Sharia, and then what are the objectives?
Simply put, Sharia are a set of laws that are supposed to guide every Muslim to do good and to stay away from evil. Simply put, do good and stay away from evil. Evil as in corruption, as in anything that you think it is evil, that is what the Sharia guides you. That is one. And the second component of Sharia law is to enable every Muslim to live a very decent and a very good life. When we say God-fearing life, that is what the interpretation means. Decent life and a very good life. So simply put, that is Sharia law. However, it has its own goals that these laws, you know, set out to achieve, what we refer to as objectives. And any attempt to discuss these objectives open the conversation wider and broader. Then you would begin to wonder, is it not supposed to be the very objectives that every religion is supposed to be achieving to as it were, aiming at achieving? For instance, the protection of our dignity is very core. The protection of your life is very core. The protection of your mind is very core. The protection of your family is very core. The protection of your wealth is very core. I don't see anything more important than these 5 things in every human being's life. Your life is so essential. It is the best gift that God ever gives every human being. And to snuff it out, there has to be a justifiable reason for you to take somebody else's life. That is why the Quran is replete with verses that address this issue. Do not attempt at taking someone else's life except when there is a reason, a justifiable reason for you to do so. And then he says in other verses, and for that reason we spoke to the Israelites that if you were to snuff one person's life, it is as though you snuffed the entirety of human family's life. If you are to preserve or even help in the preservation of one life, it is as though you've preserved or helped in preserving the entirety of the human family's life. So life is core and life is so very essential. So when you consider all these verses, all these 5 objectives, plus the verses that comes with it, supporting and giving or affirming it, you just can't help but arrive at a simple conclusion that what you refer to as the objectives of the Islamic law are indeed the objectives of every sound human being to achieve. It makes no difference whether you are a Christian, whether you are a Muslim, whether you are a Jew or whatever. These 5 goals are essential. And remember, in the Islamic community, these 5 objectives are not only protected for Muslims against those who are not Muslims. No, even those who live with us are non-Muslims. Islam seeks to protect these 5 objectives as far as they are all a part of the human family.
Now, Sharia is divine. Human rights principle declarations made by human beings. Can we reconcile the two?
I would like to build this point from somewhere.
Okay.
You see, in rights are simply alienable, like we say, because they are God-given. They are not rights because somebody gave them to you.
Okay.
And these are things that they are, you know, they belong to every person, whether you are black, whether you are white, whether you are a girl, whether you are a boy, Muslim, non-Muslim. Rights belong to everybody. So in 1948, I guess after the Second World War, when they sat down to prepare the world, so to speak, against the evil events of time, they thought carefully about certain things. You know, when you consider the losses of the First World War and the Second World War, those who suffered heavily were the European nations, and of course America to a larger extent. So some say that these laws were carved out of their own experiences, so that whatever happens next, you know, no serious infringements will be caused on certain things. So let us establish these rights so that the whole world would accept, would adopt and respect these laws. So it was done in 1948, and for us as Muslims in 1990, somewhere in Cairo, Muslim scholarship sat down and decided to look at these rights and examine it against the teaching of the Quran and the Hadith of Prophet Muhammad. Are they compatible? Where do they have divergent differences? And they arrived at the conclusion that what they have studied as far as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are concerned does not go contrary to Islamic laws. As a matter of fact, it complements that which the Quran teaches, and the Sharia, objectives of Sharia also complements the declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, but we have certain things to worry about.
Good.
We have certain things
like
to worry about. So you realize that there was challenges, and I like to remember. I like to mention just about three of them.
Okay.
For instance, religious rights.
Okay.
If you take the issue of conversion, for instance, when a Muslim decides to become a Christian in a country or demography peopled greatly by Muslims.
Let's read that.
Exactly. He decides to become a Christian, for instance. How does the Muslim community deal with the issue? Remember, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, he has every right to practice whatever religion he wants. But how does this sit comfortably with the context of a Muslim society? Exactly. How do we deal with this? And you remember, we have issues where cases of apostasy are dealt with, sometimes with death sentences in Islamic communities. That is one issue, for instance. The issue of equality for non-Muslims and women in general, and then non-Muslims too in general, whether they are Muslim women or they are not Muslim women. There's the issue of equality. That is why you realize that even in 1948, when the Universal Declaration was done, Saudi Arabia did not adopt it for certain reasons. They did not. You know, but later they aligned themselves to certain issues. So the issue of equality between Muslim women and non-Muslims in general also is a great issue. You realize that in mainstream Islam there are teachings and interpretations of certain verses that apply or that imply that the Muslim woman's equality to the Muslim man is not the same, for instance. And then where we live in the majority, non-Muslims do not enjoy certain equalities with Muslims as well. So how do you address this? In the light of the fact that inside the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it is clear, all are equal. You know, so that is two. Number three, freedom of expression. For instance, in greater Muslim countries, those freedoms are limited. You know, you cannot use the right to the freedom of expression to say something against the Quran, for instance, or to say something against Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for instance, or to say something that incites.
No, but Mr. Sheikh Muhammad, freedom expression, does it mean you have to blaspheme?
No, you can't. You can, but you see, this is the difference between what it means in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and what it means in the context of the work done by Muslim scholars in Cairo in 1990.
Okay, so in the light of the challenges that you have mentioned, especially the three key challenges, what was the conclusion of the Cairo Declaration?
Well, the conclusion has been that what they have presented to the Human Rights Commission after the 1990 adaptation of their own work is not an alternative to the work of the Declaration of Human Rights, but rather this is something to complement the work that the gentleman sat down in Switzerland and did. They also concluded that they are not holding any grudge whatsoever as far as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is concerned. But they are also saying that the religion ought to be respected. For us, religion is our identity, and it means everything.
It must manifest.
Exactly, it must manifest. So you also notice, Imam Abbas, that when they sat down in 1948 to discuss these issues, the question is how many Muslims were present? And sometimes we say if Muslims scholars were available in 1948, the balance
would have been very
good. Very good. The input would have been considered greatly, and perhaps this whole argument.
But we are still evolving. Why can't we, sit down again to look at this?
Well, we can always sit down and look at it. And I believe that's why in 1990 the scholars sat down in Egypt to study it and then to speak out, as far as those declarations are concerned, and whether something can be done to consider greatly the Muslim nations and how they live their lives.
Well, I think viewers, you are getting the point. Now, in the light of our discussion, our main focus is how does Sharia, principles of human rights, how do they promote a community of well-being?
Well, this is very important because...
Is it relevant? Is it important? Do they have roles to play?
They have greater roles to play. I think for every Muslim, the verse that speaks to the dignity of every human being is so very important. Surah Al-Isra, Quran 17:70. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. And indeed, we have, I'm trying to look for the right word for karramna. Honored. We have honored the family of Adam. I like for viewers to listen carefully to this verse. Indeed, we have honored the family of Adam. And remember in our teachings, the family of Adam does not distinguish between one race or the other. Exactly. Whether you are white, you are black, you're Muslim, you're Christian, you are a Kotokoli or a Moshi, wherever you come from, you belong to the family of Adam. So the Quran is in this way.
No discrimination.
No discrimination.
Okay.
And this again is a part of the Declaration of Human Rights.
Exactly.
No discrimination.
A lot of extractions and deductions
are coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
So the honor goes directly to the entirety of human family without any discrimination whatsoever. وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. And we raise them high on the land and on the sea. That also speaks to another right. Your right to freedom. Your right to live a comfortable life. Your right to safety, for instance. And because he wants you to be safe, he made sure that on earth you live the best of life. On sea, the human family lives the best of life. And then he says, وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. And then we afforded to the human family the best of things. Again, back to the right, the best of all things. For instance, if we were considering
this is 1,000 years before the declaration.
Exactly. I'll get to that. If you consider all the 19 rights, human rights and principles, it sits comfortably with this very verse that I'm reciting. Dignity, honor, right to the best things of life. That, like he said in the Quran, I have given this human family all the best things on earth that they need to enjoy their lives with.
So in that sense, in a community
and I made them the best of most of the things that I have created, all the things that I have created, the human family. So it is not given to you by anybody. It is given to you by God directly. That is why in the teachings of the Quran, All the verses, my brother, starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, except Quran chapter 9. It teaches you that at the core essence of the teachings of Islam, it is mercy, it is justice, it is love. It's about people getting to live their lives comfortably. And that's exactly what these people did in 1950.
So how does that translate into a community of well-being?
Well, what is well-being?
Exactly.
What is well-being?
No, but I asked the question.
Well-being is a situation or the state where if people cannot afford to get all what they need to live their life with, at least they can get whatever are essential for them to live with. We're talking about the essentials of life, you know, in well-being. Anything we get beyond the essentials of life, alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Good. But like the right to life, your right to food, your right to shelter, your right to education, these are essential things that make people very happy and very flexible in their life.
So in a society like that, the inhabitants must flourish.
Of course.
And they must live their life to the fullest
of their potential.
Good.
Exactly.
So when these two things are the key, we will say that to some extent there is some
degree of well-being.
Some degree of well-being. Guided by laws.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And the law should not discriminate.
Exactly.
Okay.
No discrimination.
Okay.
Serious equality before the law.
Okay.
Rights and access to education, to shelter, to good food. This is what people see, you know.
So let's examine our communities critically. Can we say definitely they are communities of well-being?
Well, I would wish that we would declare all the communities that we live in as communities of well-being. I would wish so, but unfortunately it is not the case. Because if I take Ghana for instance, now we are in Ghana, we're discussing things about
Ghana is too big.
Let's take Ghana for instance, and certain communities in this country where I think there's a lot of work to be done as far as well-being is concerned. When you talk about well-being, you're talking about a flourishing community, a community that flourishes, that thrives, and that is what brings about. It reminds me of this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt in 1958, where she said, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person. The neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory or farm or office where he works, such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination." And she says, unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerned citizens' action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world.
Imam, can you share, I want to digress a bit. You have a choice to do it or not to do it. This reminds me of the sermon, the last sermon of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What two lessons can we pick from there as far as human rights and well-being are concerned?
Well, that sermon is a very loaded sermon. And he spoke about so many things. But the immediate one that comes to mind for me is that of discrimination. You know, he had lived his life trying to have people understand clearly that we are all one as far as the teachings of Islam are concerned. But yet again, it was a community where it was difficult for people to feel and behave as though we are one person. And that is why some Muslims who are non-Arabs had to endure certain displeasures. So discrimination to a large extent was around. So in that sermon, he addressed the issue of discrimination. That is, for me, that's the strongest one that came to my mind. he addressed the issue of discrimination where he says there is no a degree of betterment for a white man over a black man, not for the brown man over the black man, for instance. The only measuring rod is the fear of Allah. Whether the person is black, whether the person is white, whether the person is green, in as much as he acknowledges God better than you do, I mean, he is the best person as far as these teachings are concerned. And
he spoke about women.
Yeah, he did speak about women too as well. But you see, Imam Abbas,
no.
Sometimes we take these teachings, we read them every day. The Hajj al-Wada, that sermon he did is very popular, and most Muslims know exactly what it is. But sometimes it's one thing reading these things, it's another thing trying to live the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. And for me, that's a difficult thing.
I think I'll have to bring you back on the Universal Declaration in Hajj al-Wada.
Okay.
But let me take you through this. I have these cards with me. There are a lot, about 19 or so. Yes, we can't do all the 19, but I want to show them to the camera. Then you would explain to me. So this is number 1.
What is a human right to life? I mean, survival. You can see a father, a mother, a son, and a daughter, and an animal, a well, a tree. This is a symbol that reflects, our right to life. The animal has a right to life. The children, they have their own right to life. The bird up on the tree, even the tree itself, also has a right, to life. So we preserve all these things, and life becomes beautiful, and we flourish.
Because I want this thing to stack in. So that's number 1.
Exactly.
Okay, let's look at number 2.
Number 2 is a human right to be free from all forms of violence. Apparently, this picture may not, in your mind, tell you directly what is it about all forms of freedom from all forms of violence, but you can see this look more like community elders, so a family with 2 men.
Sort of conflict.
Exactly, 3 men, like a conflict resolution moment where they are sitting down to discuss issues so that people will not be involved in any violence.
Okay. And this one?
The human right to be free from all forms of discrimination. You can see a Christian with a cross, the Muslim in her hijab, somebody who chooses a cultural life, the agbada and everything. Everybody. Yes.
We'll do only 5. And this one?
Human right to peace and security. Yeah, human right to peace and security. That's beautiful.
And maybe the 5th one also. We'll do 6.
Yeah, human right to health. Everybody has a right to health. Women, boys, girls, everybody.
Good health.
Good health.
And the last one, but not this one.
The human right to education, and which is very important to Islam too as well.
Okay, so let's leave the rest for another time. And now let's come back to our discussion. Now, how, as imams and traditional leaders, how do we move from debates, discussions, deliberations, and now move to action and make sure that we contribute to the effect that our communities will live a flourishing life, and also society, members of the society would also, live, exploit their full potential?
Well, the responsibility of imams have changed. Back in the day where you limited to your pulpit, the dynamics today are very different. It's more of the latest marketing strategy where the products are brought to you in your house to buy instead of you walking to the market to look for the product. These days, imams, there's a need for imams to reach out deep into the communities of people they lead. The pulpit is a great moment when you get over 50 or 100 people to listen to you and you hammer down your points clearly. But sometimes when we leave the masjid, there's a tendency to forget whatever message it is the imam said on Friday. So reaching out deep into the community is very important for imams these days. What we need to do as imams is to study properly the alignments of the instruments of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights with the verses in the Quran. So we know
which one do we pick to discard the alignment?
Well, for instance, there are too many, depending on the need of the community, for instance.
No, so can we choose 3?
Okay, for now.
Yes, for now.
Let's say the right to life.
Or the right to life.
You know, if you go back to the Quran, you would see a verse that speaks to it. You know, where he says, and for that reason, كتبنا على بني إسرائيل. من أجل ذلك.
كتبنا على بني إسرائيل.
أنه
من قتل نفس بغير نفس فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها
فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا.
Good.
This is a principle that teaches you the importance of life. You know, you don't need to take somebody's life for no reason. To take life, the right has to be justifiable. Preserving life is so strong a reason in Islam. Maybe number 2, the right to speak out your voice. You know, people have the right that when they see something wrong, you speak out against it. This is a hadith of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. فَلْيُغَيِّرُهُ بِيَدِهِ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ بِلِسَانِهِ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِيَدِهِ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. You have the right, when you see something wrong, mention it. Like they say these days, when you see something, say something. Something goes wrong, you have the right to change it. Effect a change to it by a statement or by authority. Or if you can't, the fact that you declare at the core of your heart, this is not good, then you align yourself to the people who are good. That is why he says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. People need to speak out when they see something wrong.
Health and education.
Health and education is core. In the Quran, for instance, take education, which is the Quran wouldn't be here but for education. So he says, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read, explore, research, go as far as you want to go to study. طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. It is essential, it is an obligation upon every Muslim to have some amount of knowledge. And then health. I'm trying to remember a hadith, a particular hadith that addresses health, for instance, because I'm trying to find it in the Quran. I did not see it directly. Okay,
I remember this one. The Prophet said, look for medication.
لكل داع دواء.
For every ailment has
there's
a
medicine,
cure.
Yeah.
عرف من عرفها.
Exactly.
If you have the knowledge, you have it. Like you say, if you know, you know.
You know.
You say, if you know, you know. If you have the knowledge, you have it.
Exactly.
You apply it. If you don't have, you seek for it. Okay? And
then some people relate that verse. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى النَّخْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الشَّجَرِ بُيُوتًا. And then I inspired to the honeybee, right? Take your abode on the tree and and from that extraction is a medication that allows for people to live a good life. Some people take this verse, you know, to guarantee.
Imam, permit me to do this announcement and I will come back.
Okay.
It's a very lengthy one, but I would like to summarize it. This is from I-Codex, Sheikh Mustafa's I-Codex. Musabaka is Quranic competition. The Ghana branch of Muhammad, the Sikh Foundation of African Ulama, announces the second annual Quranic memorization competition. The competition will be held in 3 categories. Proficiency in full Quran memorization, is both in Hafs and in Warsh. And then proficiency in full Quran memorization with regards to the rules of engagement. And the last one, memorization of at least 5 ahzab from the Holy Quran. And then it is going to be held in the various regions. Next week we'll announce the centers where you can pick a form to participate. But the final of finals will be on the 23rd of January. Hassan didn't give me the venues you can pick from. The second issue, I think that for some time we have been looking for support for Baby Hafiz. We are making a headway, but we still need your support. 0243 11 8401. Let the donations flow. We are making a headway. Somebody has promised a huge donation. We are until that comes. We still need your support. 0243 11 8401. Imam, we don't have much time, so I want us to look at these two issues.
Okay.
If you have something to add before I bring my issue.
No, I just wanted to say that in a contemporary world, where our world itself presents contemporary challenges, we look for contemporary solutions to as well. And the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, even though those were done in 1948, they're still relevant to all things that we seek solutions to, including what is happening right now between the USA and Iran. If you go back through, back to these instruments, we find reasons, as citizens of the world, practitioners of faith, followers of politics, to express how we feel about what is going on right now and whether the world wants it to continue the way it is, or the world would appreciate a change.
If your neighbor's beer catches fire,
find a way with a huge bucket of water and quench it before it gets across to you. Good. It's a principle of religion. It's a principle, again, that you can find within the articles of the Universal Declarations of Human Rights. So let us find solutions to all problems that we can. I'm trying to address imams here. Do not look at these declarations as something alien to the Quran. We make it a very big mistake. Sometimes, I remember when we went in 2015 and Molly started teaching, and then everything was coming to fore. It was as though she brought all these teachings from the Quran directly. Because we never felt we were absorbing any alien material in our heads. For us, all what she was saying made a lot of sense as far as the teachings of the Quran was concerned. So there's every reason for every imam, and I think Imam Abbas will be doing this, very soon. Some training for some imams.
We're looking at the content and then the context, because in Senegal, you know how imams use the Quranic principles to end up using the critical mass and then using the Tostan methodology to end up some forms of discrimination. Exactly. So we're trying to look at that. Imam, your last comment?
Well, my last comment is that it is a new year, 2020, and for life to flourish and for us to live a very excellent life of well-being, we need to learn to live in peace and harmony and coexist with each other nicely. We have also entered into an election year, and very soon our politicians will start making a whole lot of noise. But please, be yourselves, and also always remember, Ghana is very important. It's always Ghana.
You are a very lucky Imam. Your masjid mosque is at the former seat of government. Yes. What are you discussing today in your khutbah?
Well, today I've invited Imam Amin Bamba all the way from Tamale to give us a sermon. He's a very powerful young man, and I know he knows exactly what to say looking at the times that we are living right now.
Please tell Imam.
Yes.
My fugu and my honey.
I'll let him know that. And before I go, let me say a warm good morning to somebody I was talking to last night. Thank you too, and for the great things that you mean to me in my life. Thank you so much.
Viewers, all too soon, we've come to this very interesting discussion on aligning principles of human rights with religious texts in the context of Islamic law and then Sharia. Until we meet again next week for yet another interesting edition of Islamic Hour on Islamic Gods, on Metro TV. I've been speaking to Minister Mohammed Husseini Bagnya, and my name is Abbas Umar Abdul-Karim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and thank you all, my crew.